Welcome to another episode of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal Roman and I'm Rich Griffin. And again, I'd like to thank all our listeners and subscribers. And remember, if you're subscribing or tuning in for the first time, don't forget to leave a comment and recommend us to your friends. Um, we will be recording after the Leafs debacle, where they
We are recording after the
We
leak.
are recording after the Leafs debacle and after the Blue Jays hung on finally with a good bullpen performance again by the usual suspects, but
Well,
this time including Yariel Rodriguez, who has
yeah,
really stepped up into that role, which is what they need, especially with Nick Sandlin still out.
he looked actually quite sharp. I thought his stuff had, some life, and it was just the guy you kind of were hoping to see more consistently, right? So it was a good outing for him.
When he gets himself in trouble, he goes like there was the first batter that he faced in the eighth inning was an 11 pitch at bat, and
Right.
when he gets deep into a count, when he gets into trouble, he goes back to his little hesitation, the Cuban move that he has that didn't work when he was a starter, and he pulled it out of his hat. And again, it didn't work. He needs to stay away from that and just become the pitcher, the regular pitcher that he is with the really good stuff,
Yeah.
97-mile-an-hour fastball and the ability to go all out for one inning. And he can be more than a one inning guy, but I think you have to take him out of that mix of potential starting pitchers. There are others that may not have emerged, but I think he needs to find that role that he's in right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think especially with where the bullpen's at right now, clearly, he's more, valuable, being used more consistently if they can, use him to bridge some of those innings to get to Garcia, Hoffman. I think that's where I think his value is right now. So, and it sure was tonight. So, and then you're not overexposing the other guys that you don't want to. And you get, I mean, Brendan Little, depending on the night you're looking at him. That knuckle curve, man, that hard breaking ball is a nasty weapon.
Yeah,
It
it's
really
uh,
is.
it's amazing to see swing and miss from a guy like that, from both left-handers and right-handers.
And bad swings.
Yeah, balls in the
Bad swings.
yeah, they can't help themselves, and it's good to have a guy like that. And then our man Mason Fluharty, the other lefty, that I've apologized to several times already. But yeah, that combination of two lefties, I don't know if they're good for a 162 game marathon,
Yeah.
but right now in the month of May, it looks like a pretty good combination of southpaws.
Yeah, as long as you don't overexpose Mason, I think we'll see. I mean, I'm not confident in that part of it, but the rest of it you could see where there's some real value in those guys in the back end of the bullpen, including Little and Yariel. So um yeah,
Before
for
we
sure.
Before we get into the homestand, the Blue Jays homestand, and coming off the road trip and recent success slash failures, what's your take on the Leafs series where they took a 2-0 lead and they're going to head back to Florida for Game 6 down 3-2? I mean, this was a season that they were supposed to be a different Leafs team. And it is in that they took a 2-0 lead, but now they've
Just
reverted.
just when you think they've made that jump, I mean, it's not that they're down 3-2, it's the way they're down 3-2. That's what everybody gets worried, concerned about. It's the same old listless kind of nothing effort where they just get outworked, out punched in the face, beaten up down. Like it's the way it happens. I mean, they almost got shut out back-to-back games, and this game could not have been less inspiring if you're a Leaf fan. It's game five. Like this should be just an all-out everybody battle, all in. Like I've seen it a million times over, you too. And this is the criticism of the core four. There's just that lack of life to their game. Like the big
Yeah,
boys, man. What happened to Matthews and Marner's just typical Marner. He won't shoot the puck. Just he wants to pass it into the net. There's just a lack of confidence, and it just doesn't play at this time of year. It just does not play. And I don't know how many times you got to watch that style of hockey. It's a different brand of hockey. And yes, I think they've been the most equipped to win as this team ever has. But here we are again. I mean, you don't feel like they can win it all in Florida. Now, of course they can, but it doesn't feel like that's even a remote possibility tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the shifts of the William Nylander line, and Tavares has sort of been non invisible as well, but Nylander is the only going concern for the Panthers in terms of scoring opportunities, and he's had some really good ones, but where are Marner and Matthews? And, I'm so tired of hearing people going, well, Matthews two-way game. Usually it's the scoring that's there, and people go, well, you got to play 200 feet of ice. But that's not the case with Matthews. The rest of his game is really good. He's just not putting the puck in the net. Well, excuse me, but that's why he's making as much money as he is.
And this is when you do it. I mean, is anybody saying that about McDavid or McKinnon or back in the day, Sid or Rantanen?
Yeah,
Like you
right.
score when it matters. Like you just don't score against bad teams. Is that what they're saying? Like I know the game gets hard in the playoffs.
Yeah.
100% it does. That's why you don't win. You're not scoring, man.
The Blue Jays now they're as we speak they're 1-1 on the homestand against the Rays, and there's mixed feelings about the last 13 games. I'll take it back to April 30th when they won a game. Uh, in those 13 games, they're 8-5. What's your feeling about the last or the month of May? Your feeling in general about how they've been playing? Because 8-5, you could say, well, this is a situation where 8-5 is the worst that they should be over that stretch. They could be 12-1 because there's been four blown saves in the eighth and ninth inning where they were leading in the game in the eighth and ninth and lost the game. So overall, if you say John Schneider has been plotting the use of his pitchers for these games, he's plotted it to a 12-1 record, but the performance by his key pitchers has not matched his generalship.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can't argue with the job he's done, actually. And the offense has finally come alive in certain instances. I mean, you're still waiting for Bo and even Vladdy to an extent, but they've put up some runs. Now, the concern for me is the guys that, I mean, you're getting some production from some guys. I don't know if they're going to be able to maintain it, although it's really nice to see Kirk start to swing the bat and have nice at bats. It's been a couple years, to be honest with you, but you've seen him. He's an offensive player. That's what he came up as. And if he can lengthen that lineup out, hey, Varsho, I mean, he's a 200 hitter. I mean, uh, even with that, I mean, if it's got a little bit of pop, that's something they didn't have previously, with whether it was Nathan Lucas or what have you. So, I mean, they've scored some runs a little bit, but now, like you said, the bullpen has been a concern, and I'm really interested to see the Hoffman turn of events. This. I don't believe this is a fatigue thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe it is, but it's command. It's certainly all command. It's not stuff. Um, that blow up is unbelievable that happened the night before. I couldn't believe what I was watching him do. Just he kind of lost his command. Um, he was ready to put them away, and he just couldn't like uh, that at bat to and with the bases loaded. Well, he walked the eight guy after having one out, but he had Caminero, is it? Put away. He had him with two strikes with the worst swing, and that guy had no chance. And then he just couldn't locate his pitches. And that last breaking ball that was in, I mean, you couldn't make a bigger mistake. All he had to do was bury it away, and that guy's hacking, swinging, and you're out of that thing. And he just lost his command, and that's what happened in those previous games he blew. And when he got it back, lights out.
When he struck out Walls, I think, to start the inning. This is in the last game that he blew the
Yeah,
opener
two
of the
nights ago.
homestand. Yeah. When he struck out the first hitter, it was his eighth consecutive strikeout over
Right.
3 games.
Right.
Um, and so he goes 2-2 on the eighth place hitter, right?
Hmm.
And the next pitch, it looked like he thought it was strike three. That would have been 2 outs. I asked John Schneider in the post game if that was a strike, and he said no, it was a couple inches off the plate, but it did seem to. So Schneider wasn't using that as an excuse, but it did seem to bother Hoffman. And then he went walk, three singles in a row, and a grand slam. You know, that is, you can't blame that any of that on the manager. And then you look at the bullpen, and here's what the bullpen has done in those 13 games that we're talking about. They are two and 2-3 with two saves and two. Oh no, this is Hoffman.
Yeah.
Hoffman on May 3rd, going into his lull, his slump, was 3-0 with seven saves and a 1.10 ERA. In his last 5 games, the Jays are 2-3. He's 0-2 with two saves and two blown saves, a 33.00 ERA, 3 innings, 10 hits, 11 runs, 11 earned runs, two walks, eight strikeouts, and three home runs in the 3 innings. So, like, he better not have hit a wall. If he's hit a wall on May the 14th, uh, I mean, that's one of the great wall hits right up there with Ayrton Senna,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, ouch. Ouch.
But
Yes.
yeah, and it doesn't look like his stuff is diminished.
It's
His
not a stuff.
his
It,
velocity is there.
it's
Um,
just the command and maybe pitch selection you can argue, but we were watching. It's just location of his pitches.
Yeah. And maybe and I hate, you know how much I hate to say that guys can't pitch back-to-back days or can't throw 25 pitches and then throw again the next day. Maybe they have to rely on like closer A and closer B, with that being Jimmy Garcia. And then if they have guys step up, like Chad Green is a veteran, you know what he's going to do. And it's amazing to think that last year in the second half, he was the closer. Right now, he's sort of in middle relief, and you go, this bullpen is that much better on paper that Chad Green can be a middle reliever for you.
And that's where he belongs right now. I mean, obviously he was in the closer role because they just kind of threw in the towel there at the end of last year. But yeah, if he's in your middle relief, I think I think that's a good spot for him. Like we said at the start of the year, if everything falls into place, the bullpen's fine. And hey, if what they need is to get guys like Sandlin back and Swanson back, and I'm even Ryan Burr, God forbid, if he gets in there for some depth innings as opposed to some of the other guys they're trotting out there. I
Yeah,
think you're okay, but Hoffman and Garcia got to get the job done. I mean, that's just you
yeah.
can't.
I mean, you can't go long with long into the season with Braden Fisher still on your team. But tonight, as we speak, which is Wednesday night, both Swanson and Burr pitched in Buffalo. Swanson was 1 inning, 3 hits, 4 runs, one walk, one strikeout.
Oops.
Burr was 1 inning, 2 hits, 2 runs, no walks, one strikeout.
So they're ready.
These guys are getting healthy because the organization allowed them to pitch in games in Buffalo at AAA, but clearly they're going to need some more reps in game before they can come up and help.
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah, apparently so. You are a master of
Maybe
understatement.
the wind was blowing out tonight, Griff. It is, it does happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There are cars going up that freeway ramp that were being peppered.
That's right.
Speaking of giving time for things to work themselves out, the rotation I don't think has that time.
I thought you were going to talk about Pete Rose.
No, no, no,
Is
no.
it
We're going
time to
to talk
work
about
things
Pete
out?
Rose later. Serving time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rotation. Max Scherzer threw a couple of innings, simulated innings in Seattle, and then he came up with a bad back on Tuesday. So he's he's being shelved for a little bit. He's on the 60-day IL. He can't come back until June sometime anyway. Um, and he won't. But if with him not on the immediate horizon, Jose Urania doesn't seem really like an answer.
No.
I've got some dismal choices here. I'll read them off to you for the 5 to 10 spots in the starting rotation. I mean, Bowden Francis seems to be what you would expect that he would devolve into from last year, where he was just unhittable.
And,
I mean,
and
adjustments are made and he needs to make adjustments, and he is what he is.
and he's lucky that nobody's going to push him out of the rotation right now. So it's not like he has to worry.
Right. The last 22 games, just some numbers here. The last 22 games, the Blue Jays starters have a combined 2-8 record. There's only two starter wins in the last 22 starts, which is sort of alarming. And I know wins aren't the be all and end
Yeah.
all anymore. But in the first 20 games, the starters were 9-5. And it is a good starting group. You know, the top three are good. They're solid. They just didn't have any offense for a long period of
Yeah.
time. They're not like Tarek Skubal or any of those guys. They'll give you six quality innings with maybe 3 runs or six with 4 runs, whatever, enough to keep you in ball games.
Yeah.
But then it's up to the offense to score enough runs to give you the win. And that wasn't happening, and it seems to be happening more now. But then the bullpen throws gas on that fire, and the starter loses his win. So,
Right.
um, so the choices are Urania, Eric Lauer, who threw well twice in relief, multiple innings. What do you think his best role is?
Well, I think it is as a starter. I think that's where he's been most comfortable, and I think that's where you need him anyways. I mean, hey, any of these guys, Griff, that are maybe on questionable major leaguers, you want to limit their exposure as much as possible. So his best role is probably exactly that. He's probably best equipped to get those starts. Um, he's a bit of a veteran. He's had some experience. He's had some success in other leagues. Um, it may not go well, but he's the guy probably I'm looking to give me a start here and there. That'd be my choice. But I mean,
I
yeah,
like Lauer as the immediate answer in that rotation because he's a left-hander, and the other team will load up on right-handed hitters, and most of your key high leverage bullpen guys are
already.
right-handed. So it works out that way in terms of forcing the other team to either pinch hit or let their right-handers face Jimmy Garcia and Hoffman,
Right.
those guys. And even Wyrod, Yariel Rodriguez, if he thrusts himself into that supporting role in a significant way, then there's another hard throwing right-hander that would benefit from that. Um, Wyrod, we just discussed, he seems to be finding his role, finding his niche on that pitching staff as a definite middle inning guy with the capability of pitching the eighth like he did on Wednesday night. Easton Lucas, would you ever think of giving him another chance? He went back down to AAA, and now he's leveled off and he's got a 3.00 ERA in like 6 starts or whatever it is. But do you think he's proved what he is when he was up here, or could he be worthy of? Because those first 2 starts that he had, we raved about his location and his ability to spot the fastball, and then after that, it was a whole new ball game.
I think he's a guy, like you say, he's one of your depth guys. If you sneak him in and out, I think it's probably his best chance for success, right? If he's making start after start, you just don't want that. The stuff isn't there. But there's those guys that if they're pinpoint control on that day, they can get the job done. And again, I think you're kind of hope and praying on some of these guys. And yeah, he's one of the guys. It's who's healthiest, who's freshest, and you line them up. And if Lucas is your guy that day instead of Lauer, that's the way it goes. Like that's the problem when you don't have the depth. And I'm not saying everybody has it in the major leagues. I mean, this is just kind of how it goes when maybe you run into injuries or, unfortunately, the Jays don't have the prospects that other teams can bring up, perhaps, and, get some experience and some outings from. They're just not at that level yet. All their guys are in the lower minors. So you're running out Easton Lucas and Eric Lauers and whoever, and that's
Well,
just how it is.
yeah, those guys that you're mentioning are the immediate non-solution to the rotation. But if you go to middle of June, there's some guys. I mean, we still haven't seen an official pitching line from Spencer Turnbull in
Yep.
terms of the complex league. He's down there. I guess he's just working himself into a game situation, and he'll probably have a start maybe for the complex league, and then maybe one in low A Dunedin, and then maybe he'll jump to Buffalo after that. So he's still a month away.
And again, we said it before. I just don't understand why a guy like that isn't in your system to start with when you lack depth. I mean, how that guy isn't ready to go now and wasn't signed in the offseason. This is the most likely scenario. And do you want to at least take a shot on a Spencer Turnbull or Easton Lucas?
Yeah.
I just that
Well,
part I don't quite get.
to your point that you just made, you sort of have to suspect that you're going to need a guy like Spencer Turnbull when you've given $15.5 million to Mad Max, coming off his stretch of injuries and inability to put in a full season. You better have somebody that you trust, like a Spencer Turnbull, who was in the top 50 of off-season free agents, number 50, but that's still in the top 50, as opposed to some of these other guys. And I don't even know what they've promised Turnbull if he's on a major league roster, but I wouldn't think more than 1.5 million, right?
Well, it's not much, clearly. I mean,
Yeah.
right. So there's
So,
just very little reason not to go get guys like that, as especially if you're desperate to make the playoffs, and clearly they are.
yeah,
You know, because you
they're
can't
back to
rely on
500,
S.
baby.
What's that?
They're back to
Well,
500.
they are, and I mean, regardless whether they deserve to be there or not, they are, and and with the way the AL East looks in the American League, that's probably how it's going to look for a long time, right?
Yeah.
So,
So now we go to, let's say, July, and as the trade deadline approaches, they've got Adam Mako back healthy pitching. Adam Kloffenstein, he's back pitching. He's made three starts, two of them at Complex League, and then one in Dunedin. So he's back, and he's got a couple of games of major league
yep.
experience when he was with the Cardinals. But again, those aren't for another month and a half. You're looking into July, and you can make a decision on where you are in the standings in terms of whether you're going to trade somebody away and bring one of these guys up. But right now, they're not helping. They're not even an option at this point.
No. And God forbid something else goes awry in the rotation. I mean, then you're really pooched.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then if you go beyond July, then you're into 2026 because that's the earliest that you're going to see guys like Trey Savage and Cal Steven who are just tearing it up in the Florida State League right now. There's Warren Watts Brown, who's at Vancouver. He was the third round pick in 2023 out of Oklahoma State. That Vancouver's high class A, and he struck out 54 batters in 32 and a third innings in seven starts.
Not so
So
bad.
he's emerging a little bit in terms of maybe being a prospect. But now, and tell me if this surprises you or not, but Jake Bloss is undergoing UCL surgery, Tommy John, and so he'll be out a year, a full year.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Par for the course. I mean, like, holy smokes. I mean, I saw a thing about how many Blue Jays have been had to deal with this, and I don't think I just think this is a league-wide issue. I mean, you just expect these guys to go down, and we're talking about all the guys in the Loma Yasevich and those guys, and you're just waiting for that day to come too. Like you're
Yeah.
just like, holy smokes.
I mean, Yasavich has the major league scouts or the amateur scouts who saw him say that he's just waiting for Tommy John surgery.
Well, that delivery is really,
Yeah.
really unusual. It
But
looks
they've
very,
lowered it though. I think they've lowered his slot, and hopefully for the organization, he will be able to avoid it. And they need guys. Ricky Tiedemann had it. Barrieri had it. It's crazy the number, but I think what you said earlier, that it's an epidemic
and
baseball
we know
wide.
why. We
You
just
know?
know why. I mean, there's no secrets here. I mean, guys are just balls out all the time, and that's the way the game's designed. And you cycle through guys like they're just, just an asset, not a name on the jersey. You just replace them, and that's how it goes. And then because you can recover,
Yeah.
like it's not like this is a career-ending surgery. You often come back
Yeah.
even stronger. Sometimes you wonder if you just give it to him right out of the chute.
Well, I think there are many organizations who won't say it, but when you give a guy Tommy John surgery and he's still at Class A or Double A, at
They're
least
happy.
you're not spending $10 million on a guy and then having him miss a full year.
Yeah,
He's missing a year when he's making peanuts.
part of his development.
Yeah, it's part of his development, right?
I mean, it's a sad situation, but I mean, and again, it's not a Blue Jay specific thing, but there's a lot of Blue Jays going through it.
Yeah.
But I just think that's a coincidence. Obviously, a lot of teams, that's just how it goes across the game these days. And yeah, like it's kind now it's such a fine line. So we're saying you're talking about the Blue Jays. Okay, they're 500. If they could somehow maintain that, and obviously they're gonna sit there and go, okay, we're in this race. Well, let's say you're in a situation where you can add a pitcher, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, what if we add a pitcher and like, oh right, Alek Manoah might be available to us down the
Yeah.
stretch. I mean,
Yeah.
it looks entirely different all of a sudden. All of a sudden you go, wow, that's a great rotation. We're
Yeah.
poised to do something.
And
It's
when
just you're walking a tightrope right now.
right.
You know what I mean?
And when you talk about putting something together, they're at 500 right now as we speak. They're putting something together. That could be as simple as the bullpen not blowing those 4 games that they did, so that now you've got that 12-1 streak over 13 games. Look at the Minnesota Twins. We were disrespecting them last week. They were among our 5 most disappointing teams.
Yeah.
Now they've won 10 games in a row. They won a doubleheader on Wednesday. And
Yeah.
they're 3 games above 500 after being dismal for the first month and a half. So
And
it can
missed
be
by
done.
us.
Yeah, despite us. Yeah, those power rankings keep going up and down like a yo-yo.
That's right.
Um, so just finishing up the injury updates, Nick Sandlin was in Toronto at Rogers Center and he threw flat ground on Tuesday. He's not ready to be in a game, but he is a key member of that
Oh,
bullpen.
boy, is he ever. Yeah, he's very important to this team. Um, he's kind of well, you feel like he's the kind of that rubber arm guy that you can move around in any role and even in a pinch, high leverage stuff. Like he's truly a valuable guy. So they need to get him back as quick as they can, clearly. Clearly.
And then the last report was on Andres Jimenez, who was just resuming baseball activities. He left that game running out a ground ball with a strained quad.
Yeah.
But now you look at the alignment, and you've got Ernie Clement at second base, and you don't lose much defensively with Clement at second. Barger, their team is 5-1 with him starting at third base over the last week, and he's sort of showing the same thing that those overused youngsters show, is that like their pitching is adjusting to him now, and he's sort of not doing like his arc is not going straight up like it looked like it was going to. Yeah.
I mean, you root for the guy swings out his ass. Like he's got
Yeah.
massive power. He's toolsy, toolsy, toolsy. The big arm at third. You feel like just the finer points of the game pass him by a little bit because he's probably gotten by with this stuff his entire life.
Well,
So,
I feel like he's a guy that's never looked at an iPad in his life. Yeah.
right,
He just goes up and
right.
hacks.
Like I said, he's a guy you
God
root
bless
for,
him for
but
that.
obviously. Yeah, and God bless her for that. But I mean, you could see why he could end up having a very large slump somewhere, and you wonder if that takes it into the field at times too. Because for now we're okay because the arm plays, but other parts of the defensive game are lacking. So um, it's okay for now.
You mentioned before when we were talking about this homestand about Alejandro Kirk heating up. He's got his average up to 296. And as you pointed out, he got to the major leagues early because of his bat to ball skills, not because of his catching skills. But he's caught 21 out of the first, no, 31 out of the first 42 games, which is a heavy workload.
Yeah,
But tell me that when he's caught 93 out of the first, whatever. And then tell me if he's still this effective, because that ratio can change your effectiveness when you're carrying 245 pounds on a 5'8" frame.
yeah, and it's hard to believe that won't have an impact as we get to June, July, August, right? I mean, it's just common sense. Now, they do have Taylor Heineman, so I mean,
Yeah, that's the other guy that I apologize to.
he still keeps
Stu
playing.
Hardy and Tyler Heineman are the two guys that I dismissed, and look at them now.
He's hacking balls down the
Oh,
third base line when he's late on his swing and it's inside the bag. And like, he's got it going on right now, man.
breaks his bat on a fly ball to right and doesn't leave home plate. And the ball lands in and he has to dive in head first to be safe.
You gotta love it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's his year. It's his year. But it's nice to see Kirk actually driving the ball because even when the last 2 years there were like some base hits here and there, but this looks more like him. That home run he hit on an 0-2 pitch. I mean, obviously that's not what Pepe I wanted to throw there on an 0-2 pitch, but I mean, he smoked that ball to center field. That's not something you've been seeing him doing a lot over the last couple seasons.
But when you have Kirk doing that and you have guys at the bottom of the order doing what they've done over the last, oh, well, in this month, because April 30th was the start of that 13 game streak. But when you have those guys doing it, you overlook the fact that Bo and Vlad have stepped to the plate with opportunities to be a difference maker in any number of games and have come up short. And like they should not count Vlad's double on Tuesday night when they're down 12 or
Right.
11 to 7 and he
Right.
doubles down the line and he's like doing the whatever move that is to the dugout. That shouldn't count because earlier in the game he had opportunities when the game was on the line and he didn't come up big. So he's maddeningly mediocre.
He's
So
taken on the core four symptoms right there. It's not, it's a Toronto thing, I think.
yeah, yeah. The let's do a quick before we get into Pete Rose. Let's get do a quick Ironbacks update. What do you got for us in terms of again remind people when they can buy where they can buy their tickets and that the opening home opener is on June the 7th.
June 7th, and with as we're off and running, season starts June 5th. We go June and July, so there's a lot of elite college ball coming to the Niagara region. Ironbacks.ca. We obviously want to see everyone out there, especially opening night. It'd be nice to make a nice impression on the community for everything they've done for us, and just for everybody to understand what kind of baseball is coming their way as the years progress. We've got a pretty solid lineup. We've been announcing some players in the last few days, and we'll have one every day heading into the season at this point. Like fellows like Alex Keane, you know,
Marcus
Marcus
Butts.
Butts. What's that?
Marcus Butts.
Marcus Butts, yeah, Ethan Catney Forbes was our first we've released. Like we got some real solid um Division 1 guys, Division 2 guys on at some serious schools in the US that are we're excited about. So we're preparing feverishly. What do we got? 3.5 weeks? Is it? If
It's
that
supposed to
much
be
time?
16 to 17, 20, 24 days. Yeah.
Yeah. Since we
24
get
days
this thing
before the home
rolling.
opener.
So
Yeah.
there's so much to do. We're excited about just bringing this brand of baseball to the Niagara region, and it's kind of a missing niche in Canadian baseball. There's a team in Thunder Bay that plays in the Northwoods, and clearly the league that's out west. But there's not a lot of this type of baseball where these kids, you're seeing some really elite players that have moved on to U.S. schools and are deserving of their scholarships and coming back to play in this all-star league of all stars, I like to call it. So keep your eyes open. There's tickets for sale, and I encourage everybody to go out and see if we can get a very large crowd out for June 7th. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. So
Well,
happy to meet and
I'll be
greet
there.
whoever wants to talk baseball. I don't know how
And,
appealing that is, but
and viewers and listeners should be aware that that Mal has his hands on some really good videos from Ernie Clement, who played in this
I
league
do.
before getting to the Blue Jays, and one from ex-Blue Jays manager John Gibbons promoting the hell out of the Ironbacks manager.
He's pretty darn impressed. I think he's actually looking forward to analyzing some of our games. And of course, we had that wonderful shutout from John Schneider, and because these guys know what this league's all about. And Ernie, as you said, when he talked about it, he lit up because they all kind of found their way through this league to obviously bigger and better things, and that's what this league is for. It's a real breeding ground for guys heading to the major leagues. So I encourage everybody to get themselves out there and see what product we have to offer as we build this thing. So thanks for asking again, Griff, and we'll be doing more of this as the season plays out as well,
Yeah, no
obviously.
doubt. We'll have some. I'll be the only manager in the league covering my own games.
I'm sure it'll be rave reviews on all fronts. We'll leave the criticism to Gibby.
I'm going to leave my door open to the players, but don't bother me while I'm on deadline, okay?
That's right. Uh, hey,
Uh,
we got to wear a lot of hats at this level,
oh
Griff. I
my
know how you
God,
feel.
yeah. The Pete Rose discussion. It was on Tuesday that Rob Manfred made the announcement that Pete Rose, his lifetime suspension was being removed, thus making him eligible for entry into the Hall of Fame. It's not automatic. It would have to be going through the regular channels, but some 30 years late because he was first, would have been first eligible in 1991, having retired as a player in 86. So he would have had to wait the 5 years. But by that time, he had already been suspended by Bart Giamatti in 89, a lifetime suspension for gambling on his sport, for gambling on baseball. So now the suspension has been lifted, or the ban has been lifted, not only from him, but Shoeless Joe Jackson and all of those members of the 1919 White Sox that were in the Black Sox scandal of tanking the World Series to the Cincinnati Reds, and taking money from gamblers to throw the World Series. And the only names that are on there are guys really that were that had the qualification 10 years in the major leagues. Um, and those are the eligible for the Hall of Fame guys.
Right.
I know that there's a lot of different thoughts. There's so many different thoughts. It's even more so than the steroid cases. But what are your thoughts on Pete Rose being eligible, not going in, but just being eligible?
My, I mean, I I guess I have a lot of opinions on this. When I think a lot of people just on the surface are going to go, so much time has passed. He's passed away. And I think most people think, hey, why not? He's such a great player, his on the field accomplishments. But to me, I just there's just a dark cloud, and it's again yet another indication. It's a societal thing too. Hey, this move has nothing to do with Pete Rose, literally nothing. It has to do with Manfred appeasing Donald Trump. It's a political move on every front, so baseball can maintain its antitrust exemption going forward and be in the good books with the current administration. There is nothing more to it. And I find that kind of offensive. I mean, he bet on baseball games. There's the integrity of the game and is completely lost with this commissioner and this, the people that are looking after the game. The integrity is gone, and it's not the being in bed with the gambling companies, that's a different conversation entirely. I mean, we could have that conversation too. This isn't about Pete Rose. Like, and it's masked that it is. This is something that they're just doing to appease that orange fella in the office right there, trying to make sure they're in the best position to gain financially. And I think it's a disservice to baseball fans and a disservice to the game. I didn't read your column, so I have no idea how you feel about it. And you wait till he passes away? Seriously? You couldn't do this before he passed away? Like it just doesn't feel right. And it's not comparable to the shoe. You have to do Shoeless Joe and all those guys because you can't do Pete Rose and not
Oh, well,
everybody else.
yeah, that's
But
definitely why those guys were included.
they're not the same situations. They're just not. I mean, you people just who don't know anything about it go, "Oh, it's all gambling." There isn't even proof that a guy like Sulis Joe took the money. Yeah, they're just it's
Yeah.
a he didn't bet on baseball. Those guys didn't personally bet on
But
baseball.
some of them did take money to lose the World Series. You look at Shoeless
Hey,
Joe. Shoeless Joe was aware of it, but if you look at his statistics for that World Series, it's crazy how
he
good.
didn't throw the World Series.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
clearly.
I think that that situation is where you look at the British Open, and every year golfers go over there and they bet on themselves in those corner gambling shops, you know?
Right.
So,
Right.
like, is that different than Pete Rose betting on his own team to win in games during the regular season, even though nobody was aware because he was obviously knew that it was against the rules of Major League Baseball betting on the sport in a game in which you were involved in some capacity. I mean, they wouldn't even let PR people when you and I were PR guys. They wouldn't let us bet on our own team or any team in
Well,
baseball.
they still don't. They're
Yeah,
still
I
not allowed
no,
to.
absolutely.
Clearly. Clearly.
But yeah, so the actual fact of him betting on the Cincinnati Reds when he was managing doesn't bother me as much as uh, Bart Giamatti admitted that he believed that Pete did not bet against his team. John Dowd, who has an axe to grind, he was the special investigator for Major League Baseball, believes that Pete Rose did gamble on. I know he gambled because, like, I told a story about spring
Well,
training in '84 when he wanted to change condos because the satellite dish wasn't big enough. They couldn't get the West Coast basketball games. Hmm. He's either an insomniac or a sick
he's a
gambler.
secret scout for the Lakers.
Yeah. And every time we would play the Yankees in an exhibition game in Florida in Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Racetrack was right next door, and I would go there with a friend from the media in Montreal, Ron Rouge, and Pete would be VIP in the lounge, every night that he was there with his fiancee Carol. And yeah, so it was well known that he loved
And I
gambling.
have no problem with that. There's nothing wrong with gambling. There's zero wrong with it. But there's a lot wrong when you're gambling in your own sport and you have the ability to affect the outcome of said game.
To
Um,
win.
and
To win,
obviously,
though.
yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, we've tied this, but like you're betting on 'em to win tonight, so you're gonna, when you don't bet on them, you're throwing the game to set them up for the next game. I don't know, and like there's so many conversations
Yeah, I
about that.
mean,
I mean,
there are definitely when you're the maestro of the dugout,
yeah,
and you're wearing your closer down with a third inning as you point out,
because
because
you
you
got to win the
put money
bet.
on this game. Yeah, and you know that if he's unavailable the next game, you're not going to bet the next game because you don't have your closer. That
Right.
is, yeah, that's wrong, definitely. But one thing, not one thing, the main thing that I agree with you on, Mal, is that it's all political. The
Okay.
moment arrived where President Trump said, I am going to sign an executive order pardoning, and they're pardoning him from what? Pardoning Pete
What?
Rose. So to get ahead of that, the commissioner's office decides, well, we're going to reinstate all these guys. And so it won't look like the president is telling us what to do.
Yeah.
And in fact, I am going to take this moment on this show with this move by Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred. I am never going to vote in the Hall of Fame balloting again. I'm giving up my ballot because of
Oh, are you really?
yes.
Wow. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm
that's
I'm
quite
so
a
tired
declaration, Mr.
of
Griffin.
the politicization of this whole process. Like if I vote
Wow.
for Pete Rose and he goes in and Rob Manfred and Donald Trump are high-fiving, I would be pissed.
Well, it's about integrity, man.
Yeah.
Like when does this matter anymore? And like, I mean, in the climate we live in, I mean, it's a real, scarcity, obviously. I mean, it just even I'm actually quite impressed and proud of you for that. That's a very big
Yeah,
moment.
no,
I
I
know.
thought about it a long time today as I was writing the column, and I went, like, why? Why? And it pissed me off. Like, I didn't even know you were going to say that about.
I haven't read your column,
No, I
so
know that. That's
yeah.
why I didn't know you were going to say that about Trump and the reason that the move was made at this point in time. But I agree 100% on that.
So I get to keep you as my manager at least. I know you've got integrity.
There you go.
So any of the players listening, you're in good hands, my friend. You
Yeah.
are in good hands. So I'm actually quite impressed, quite proud. That's a yeah, I'm really shocked by that. It's a little almost moving a little bit because it matters. That's what this game is about. I mean, baseball is a special place. I mean, and we've grown up with it and the Bart Chiamattis and things along those lines where maybe it was just our youth, but there was a time when those things mattered. And I just think back to silly things about my grandfather and how your word meant everything and you shook hands and we've completely lost that. And even small gestures like that, I think obviously we'll get back there one day, but um, it's just nice to see someone actually do something for the right reasons. And I
And
applaud you for that.
it's funny because I pulled a quote in the column. I pulled a quote from the Griff's conversation that I had with Terry Francona, who was a teammate of Pete Rose's
Right?
in '84, and then he played for the Reds for Pete Rose in '87. And it was a really nice quote about Pete and what he felt he owed Pete and how he felt he disappointed Rose in '87 because he stunk and he felt like he let Pete down. And that's Pete Rose in uniform. That Francona is talking about the teammate, the manager.
The gamer.
Yeah. And it's a complete, like, there's so many facets to this story. And you picked out the main one. And I'm reacting to that by saying that I'm done. So,
Because it's not about Pete Rose, as we said,
yeah,
unfortunately.
I,
Like if we
I
want to have the conversation about Pete Rose, I'd listen to it. But this isn't that conversation. So no,
yeah.
I'm really proud of you actually.
Couple more categories here. One of them is the AL East and the Boston Red Sox and the Rafael Devers mess that they got themselves into by signing a really good player in Alex Bregman to play
Mhm.
third base, which was a position that, as we know, had been promised to Rafael Devers by the previous regime. And then Craig Breslow comes in as GM, signs Bregman, and just bluntly tells Devers that you're going to be the DH because And he says, well, I was promised. And he says, that was the previous regime. Who is to blame for the situation? And there's so much sentiment that Devers is a bad employee and a bad teammate in that he's making over $20 million and refuses to do something as simple as change position.
Again, I said, and if you're looking at this in a vacuum or in isolation, yeah, Rafael Devers looks like a really bad teammate. However, this isn't about Devers not wanting to play first base. He was pissed at how this was handled, and everybody's at fault. But I think mostly Breslau's at fault in the organization. They gave this guy that money to be their highest paid player, and they promised him third base, and they yanked the job away from him. How was this not resolved before you signed Bregman? And how could this linger? And obviously it impacted Devers. He's not angry because you're asking him to play first base. He's angry because you've disrespected him and mistreated him. Now, people will say, "Hey man, you're making $20 million. Be a good teammate." I think there's some validity in that. I think I'd rather see Devers maybe handle this quietly and just say, "You got to get me out of here. I can't trust you guys anymore. You're going to have to move me in the off season." There's probably better ways to deal with it, but I understand why he's angry. I think he's got every reason to be upset about it. They promised him the third base job and just yanked it away from him. And you don't do that 2 years into it. Hey, if you're many years in and he was a bad third baseman before
Like
they gave him
Miggy,
the money.
like
I mean,
Miggy
come
Cabrera.
on.
Miggy Cabrera was years and years into his before they asked him to move.
He's at the point where he would totally understand he's not helping the team by staying over there, and you just signed him to the deal basically, and now you've got to make sure you deal with this stuff before you sign the deal, and everybody's got to be on board, or I don't know, you're gonna have to move the guy, like he was your
Here's
guy.
here's a theory. If a guy like John Schneider had been the manager of the Red Sox, I don't think that Craig Breslow, the GM, would. I think they would have taken care of it with Devers before the move was made, before the signing was made. But because it's Alex Cora, another Latino manager, uh, and Devers, I think they just assumed that, and wrongly so, and it was a stupid assumption, that Cora would be able to handle it with Breslow because they're both speaking Spanish.
You're probably right. You're probably
And
right.
like they would have looked at John Schneider and said, we got to take care of this before John has to talk to him.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
let's put it in, say the Jays signed somebody called Vladimir Guerrero to this massive contract, and then in a couple years later, they're like, you know what? We got a better first baseman. You're gonna have to DH for now. Like just
yeah.
the 2 years into it, and then the third baseman goes down and say, Vladdy, you got to go over to play third base. Yeah, probably not gonna go over so well after
That's
you
a great,
promised them,
that's a great comparison. Great
right?
comparison. So
So
Tristan Casas is the guy, the first baseman who went down, and all of a
yeah,
sudden, the same guy who said, "Put your glove away, Rafi. You're not going to need it. You're our DH," is now doing a Maxwell Smart and brushing his shoulders off and said, "Hope you didn't take that personally.
yeah,
Do you remember where you put your glove? Oh,
yeah.
and you can't use that one anyway. It's got to be
I'll
a
I'll
first
tell
base."
you what, if Devers was the third baseman and Casas went down, then they're like, "Hey, dude, you think you can go over to first base and help us out there, and we'll put somebody over?" I'll guarantee you, he would have done it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if he was still playing third base.
And,
So,
and the guy that just from reading the room and looking at the circumstances, the guy that's in trouble, and I'm not going to say the timeline on it, but is Craig Breslow. Like GM, the new GM has been there, what, 2 years
right,
or less than 2 years because
not even.
Evers signed the contract before
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
So Breslow and owner John Henry, who I'm not a big fan of, Red Sox owner John Henry, flew to Kansas City to meet with Devers and address his concerns. And there was a meeting at the hotel, probably in John Henry's suite, that included Alex Cora, Rafael Devers, and no Craig Breslow.
And you
What
know why, right?
what does that tell you?
Because Rafael Devers says, I'm not talking to that MFer. He's not invited. And so it's not a good sign when the GM isn't invited into the meeting and he flew all the way out there. So
Yeah, we are not Sherlock Holmes on this podcast,
I
but I
can
stayed at a
deduce.
Holiday Inn Express one time, and I know. Um, okay, the last topic, and again, every team is about one quarter of the way through the season, 40 games. It seems like it's flown by, the first 40 games of the schedule. Um, so let's just do a top five list of leaders in our mind. We did our list separately. Top five of AL Cy Young uh, leaders or favorites. And I'll read my list from five down to one, and then you can make notes, and then you read your list, and we'll talk about it.
I'll make notes. All right.
Okay, number five, I got Nate Eovaldi of the Rangers,
Mhm.
who is 4-2 with a 1.78 ERA, and
Yep.
he struck out 60 and 55 and two-thirds innings, and he's helping keep the Rangers above water.
Sure is.
Number four is Garrett Crochet with Boston.
Okay.
Um, a huge signing, a huge deal in the offseason, and they signed him to a long-term deal, and he's pretty much living up to it because
Yes.
he is 4-2, 1.93, and he struck out 65 guys in 56 innings. Nasty stuff, everybody knows. He's only in his second year as a starting pitcher, so we'll see if they have to shut him down or if he hits a wall like the Blue Jays closer. Um, number three, number
That's
three, I've got Tarek Skubal, who's the defending Cy Young Award winner.
Mhm.
He's been really good, but I don't know if he's been Scuba-like. 4-2, 2.08, 60 strikeouts, 47 and two-thirds innings. He can be better, and I think he started on Wednesday and was losing the last time I looked, but losing 2-1 at the time. So, number two, I've got Max Fried of the Yankees, who
Oh,
was
okay.
another big deal there. 6-0, 1.11 ERA. That's pretty damn good for a team that, even though they're in first place, they're not as dominant as people thought they should be. I believe as people thought they should be, but he's been everything that was expected. So, and my number one guy might surprise you, but it's Hunter Brown of the Astros
That doesn't surprise
because
me at all.
I watched him pitch against the Blue Jays, and his stuff is so nasty.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
and
mean, that was something to watch
yeah,
him. Like you're like, yeah, he's on another level.
he's 6-1, 1.48 ERA, and struck out 58 and 48 and two-thirds innings. So let me hear your five down to one.
I think it's going to be somewhat similar. I got one difference in here. My number five is Eovaldi for me too. He probably deserves to be higher. I mean, he's held people to a 491 OPS. I mean, that's elite stuff. Um, but he snuck in there. The guy, I've got the same guy in there that you do, even though he's probably doesn't have quite the numbers of some other guys. It's Tarek Skubal. Skubal's number four for me. While his numbers are slightly behind a lot of other guys, he's the reason that team goes. He's the leader. He sets the tone, and he's sitting in just the right spot to make another Cy Young run. So I mean, you're splitting hairs with numbers this early in the season anyway. So for
Yeah,
me, he's the reason that team is where it's at, and he's the guy that leads in. Number three is Tyler Mahle for me. He's just pitched so exceptionally well. Again, he's another guy with a sub 500 OPS. I just couldn't ignore him. I mean, will he stay at that spot? Right? I don't know, but he deserves mention right now. And then I just had the other two reversed. Hunter Brown is number two for me, and Max Fried has just been so elite. I
yeah.
just think he gets the edge. He's just been so, and he's pitching in Yankee Stadium too. That is that you get a little couple extra points for me for that because that's
But
a bit of a joke, that park.
you got the Crawford boxes in Houston. I mean,
You do.
similar.
No, fair enough. I just think that right
And,
field
and
porch in Yankee Stadium.
I put Freed behind Hunter Brown because Freed has Aaron Judge. He has a pretty good offense behind him, especially the best hitter in baseball.
And in fairness, I'm not going to argue that Brown stuff is electric. Like I could even say reverse mine. I agree. I mean, Hunter Brown has just looked like that guy, but I mean, Fried's just not giving up anything yet. So I mean, ours were very close. I just had
And
Manny in there, and you had Crochet.
Other
So
guys, some other guys that were honorable mention were Carlos Rodon. Then you got Brian Wu with the Seattle. We didn't have any Mariner pitchers in there, but they're like the Blue Jays rotation in that there's a consistency of
yep,
excellence. And rather than just, especially right now with one guy stepping up, and they've had a couple of their starters miss some time with minor injuries that are coming back. So the Mariners team is, like I've said a lot, is a reflection in a lot of ways of the Blue Jays in the way they're built, the way they're constructed.
very much. They've just been doing it a little better, maybe,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way.
yeah. Maybe the front office is more effective. I don't know. But then
I didn't say that.
Jacob DeGrom is a guy that's coming back from serious downtime due to injuries. But no one can dispute the quality of his stuff. And if he's able to do a full season, he could be like a healthy Max Scherzer. But yeah, and then I had Tyler Mahle on my list as well. He was
Well, Jays could pay DeGrom 15 million next year. So
yeah, well, that's when something would explode inside his arm and he'd be down, you know.
that's right. That's right.
But yeah, that about does it for this week. I mean, we've covered a lot of bases here, and if the I think that is 9 game homestand for the Blue Jays. They're 1-1 as we speak, with 7 games left, and the two opponents coming up are the Tigers in first place, and the Padres, who are neck and
Really
neck
good.
really with the Dodgers.
Really good.
But to say, well, it's going to be tough sledding. It was tough sledding going to Seattle, and they swept.
Yeah, I swapped him.
You never know with this Blue Jays team. Just once the Leafs are out, and it looks like soon, there will
Tomorrow.
be more
No, two
attention
nights from
being
now.
paid.
Yeah.
More attention to being paid, and people will go, like, how does Jeff Hoffman have an ERA over 5?
That's right. People are gonna start to pay attention, as they
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so we will be back next week, and by then the homestand will be over, and we'll be able to summarize that. We'll be deeper into the NHL playoffs. We'll be able to summarize that. We'll be 17 days away from the Ironbacks opener, so we'll be able to summarize that and give you an update. But in the meantime, keep a lookout every day on social media for a new Ironbacks star that you can come out and support in St. Catharines at the ballpark.
And follow us on on our socials, and you get the daily signing update as well. We could always use some support that way.
Perfect. And yeah, it was a good spirited discussion on Pete Rose, the Blue Jays, and everything else that affects our baseball lives. And I appreciate it, Mal.
Even we talk Donald Trump nowadays. So
Yeah, yeah. We try to avoid it, but
me too. Sorry, folks.
unavoidable.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway,
Thanks, Griff.
thank you everybody for listening, and we will be back at you again next week. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you next week, Mal.
Yep.